Welcome to Kaywon Action Star, it's good to have you back here. In the opening scene, we are introduced to Detective Tom, who is sleeping on his couch. As he wakes up, he goes to the window of his room and spots robbers attempting to steal someone's car. Without hesitation, Tom rushes outside to confront them. He warns them to leave, but when they refuse to listen, a brutal fight ensues. Tom overpowers the thieves, beating them up badly, and threatens that if he ever sees them again, he will kill them. The next day, news spreads that Tom severely assaulted what the media calls innocent boys. The press quickly targets him and his entire department, leading to a public relations crisis. Concerned about Tom's increasingly violent behavior, his superiors send him to a counselor for mandatory therapy. However, Tom remains defiant, behaving rudely during the session. He even lights a cigarette in the counselor's office, and when the man tries to stop him, Tom threatens him before storming out and returning to the police station. Meanwhile, we are introduced to Elizabeth, a constable who has come to see Tom. She explains that she had been working undercover for a long time on a dangerous mission against drug dealers. To maintain her cover, she had to take drugs herself to convince the criminals that she was one of them. Unfortunately, this led to her developing an addiction. After completing rehab, she returned to duty but failed the sergeant exam, leading to her demotion to a constable. Tom listens to her story and tries to console her, but she appears deeply troubled. Later, Tom visits Bruce Roberts, a chief inspector who works alongside him. Bruce is grieving the recent death of his wife. Tom takes Bruce to a bar, hoping to lift his spirits. As they drink, Tom manages to cheer him up, even if only temporarily. However, their night out is overshadowed by a tragic event. A female police officer is shot on the street by a hooded man. Tom learns about the shooting and immediately arrives at the crime scene. When his colleagues ask about Bruce, he informs them that Bruce is still mourning his wife's death and will not be returning to work for a while. However, the murder of a police officer is too serious to ignore. The department decides to bring in a temporary inspector to fill in for Bruce. The new officer, Porter Nash, arrives, but many officers refuse to work under his command due to rumors that he is gay. Despite their reluctance, a superior officer makes it clear that they have no choice but to follow Porter's lead. Surprisingly, Porter finds an unlikely ally in the hot-headed and aggressive Tom, who has a history of violent outbursts. While the investigation into the police officer's murder continues, Elizabeth is visited by a young gang member named Metal. He fears that his gang might have killed someone and seeks her help. She agrees to look into it but warns him that this is the last favor she will do for him. She tells him that if the man is dead, he must leave the city. If he is alive, he must leave the gang. Elizabeth then turns to Tom for advice, and he suggests she speak with Detective Inspector Craig Stokes. Stokes agrees to help her but only on the condition that she goes on a date with him. Meanwhile, a reporter receives a chilling call from a man named Barry, who claims to be the one responsible for shooting the police officer. Barry warns that he isn't finished and plans to kill more officers in the coming days. While still on the call, Barry executes another police officer, bringing his body count higher. He tells the reporter that he has 8 more names on his list before hanging up. News of the serial cop killer spreads like wildfire. Porter approaches Tom, questioning whether he truly is the violent and unpredictable officer that everyone describes him to be. Their conversation is interrupted when they receive news of another murdered officer. Determined to take action, they order mass arrests of known criminals and deploy their informants to gather intelligence. Tom visits one of his contacts, Radner, who points him toward Barry Weiss, a man who recently bragged about setting a police dog on fire as practice. Tom and Porter visit Barry's apartment but find no direct evidence linking him to the murders. When Barry answers the door, he appears calm and collected, showing no signs of nervousness. However, Tom immediately recognizes him as the man he fought in a billiard hall a year earlier. Tom mocks Barry before leaving with Porter. Unbeknownst to Barry, Tom's informant begins following him and observes where he hides his belongings. Radner takes it upon himself to investigate further and eventually discovers an abandoned car filled with trophies from Barry's kills, confirming his identity as the serial killer. Meanwhile, Bruce, still reeling from his wife's death, goes to a store to buy alcohol. As he stares at the bottles, he has a moment of clarity and realizes that he is ruining his life. Determined to reclaim his purpose, he decides to return to work. However, Barry has chosen him as his next target. As Bruce heads home, Barry follows him. Once inside, Bruce hears a knock at the door. As soon as he opens it, Barry launches a vicious attack. Bruce fights back with all his strength, even grabbing a hammer in self-defense, but Barry overpowers him, snatches the weapon, and bludgeons him to death. After the brutal murder, Barry nonchalantly sits in Bruce's house, watching television. Before leaving, he steals Bruce's police uniform. Barry contacts the reporter once more, boasting that he has just killed his third police officer and instructing the journalist to name him Blitz in the next day's news. Tom is devastated upon hearing of Bruce's murder, as he was a close friend. Meanwhile, Barry, attempting to cover his tracks, packs his belongings into the trunk of a car. However, Tom's informant has been shadowing him the entire time. The informant contacts the same reporter and offers to sell evidence proving Barry's guilt for $50,000. The reporter agrees and is given the location of a parking lot for the exchange. When the journalist arrives, the informant shows him the contents of Barry's car. Though skeptical, the reporter recognizes Bruce's stolen uniform and agrees to pay. However, Barry, who has been watching them closely, realizes that the informant has betrayed him. As the deal concludes, Barry retrieves all his belongings from the car, ensuring no evidence remains. Later, Elizabeth meets with Stokes to ask about the gang-related shooting. Stokes assures her that the victim survived but has refused to reveal any names. He asks Elizabeth what she can offer in return, and she reluctantly agrees to have a drink with him the next night. Meanwhile, the reporter takes the informant to a bar and hands him the agreed payment. The informant goes to the restroom before revealing the killer's name. However, Barry, having followed them, ambushes the informant in the bathroom. The old man begs for his life, swearing that he hasn't given up Barry's identity. But Barry shows no mercy and murders him, retrieving the $50,000 before escaping. The reporter alerts the police about the car, but by the time they arrive, it is empty. Realizing that all of Barry's victims have been police officers who arrested him in the past, Tom and his colleagues deduce that Elizabeth is his next target. That night, Elizabeth is attacked by Barry outside her home, but Metal intervenes and is killed in the struggle. Before Barry can kill Elizabeth, the police arrive, forcing him to flee. To flush him out, Tom and Porter release Barry's photo to the media. After a dramatic chase, Barry is finally captured. However, due to a lack of concrete evidence, the police are forced to release him after 48 hours. Frustrated, Tom and Porter devise a plan to eliminate Barry. Knowing he will seek revenge for their billiard hall fight, they lure him to a rooftop. There, Tom overpowers Barry, takes his gun, and executes him. To cover their tracks, they stage the scene to make it appear as though Barry was killed by another unknown assailant. With no further loose ends, Tom exacts his final revenge by setting attack dogs on the reporter who smeared him in the press. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to this channel for more if you haven't done that. Put down your comments below to let me know what you think about the turn of events in this storyline. Also give my video a thumbs up to further motivate me, and share too for others to enjoy. See you on my next recap. Cheers.